Everybody. Dear participants, please take your seats. We must always have this open room, happy room, dynamic room. And today is the first working day of our program. And we are really anxious. We have this wonderful speakers format which I believe everybody knows about it, especially educated people know about it in the world. This is the format called TED, Technologies, Entertainment and Design. TED, Technology, Entertainment and Design. TED. And TED Talk, that is a special kind of presentation when the speaker is presenting his idea, his main idea, something highly important, highly personal, which is connected directly with a choice in life. And that's why this format was preferred by us, organizers of the program, because today we are discussing about the image of the future. So this is something that every person, every human being is looking, the impressions, conscious, maybe not conscious. What is the visions of the future? What is the vision of myself in the future? Have you ever thought about the future? We all have dreams. We all have plans, hopes. But consciously or maybe unconsciously, we create this image of the future, and we create the future. Sometimes we're surprised about the result, but that just means that this is the kind of the image we had. And if the effort of one person regarding creation of the future just gets to implementation of the dream, implementation of the picture that you painted into life. And yesterday, the opening ceremony, we saw how one person could change the whole world around him or her and can change the life on the planet. And can you imagine that when we make this collective effort, how strong it is, how mighty, when several hundred people, several thousand people come to an agreement together and think about the image of the future, and they start implementing it into life every day. And this is our main wish from the organizers to you, dear participants. Let's think together. What is the image of the future? What's your vision? What's your friend's vision? What's your colleague's vision? Is it the same or not? And how to come to an agreement about our common future. And today we introduce three very interesting personalities, very interesting stories of life who are talking about their life and their future. Let's welcome them, and let's welcome the format itself. I'm going to announce these speakers. And one of the speakers who is going to be the moderator, he's going to tell us about just what is going to be introduced today as the image of the future. So, we have three speakers. Chris Kinsville-Hein, Associate Professor of the HALT International School of Business, Managing Director of the company. And also we have Artem Aganov, crystallographer. Well, something is wrong with the presentation. No big deal. And yesterday we saw him in the framework of our show, the very first person who was introduced. So that's crystal theorist. And Olaf Hauer, guest professor at the Stockholm School of Economics in Russia, and managing partner of the international team INTG. And now Chris Kinsville-Hein would like to welcome, and please give him the round of applause.
Morning, good morning, good morning. God, look at this. Wow. Incredible. Amazing. I don't know what they are. I'm not touching them. Okay. Hands up who can see me. Put your hands up if you can see me. What about you guys? No? Okay, all right. And you, oh yeah, okay, all right. All right, what it means is that I've got a kind of a Pilates workout here, all right, in order to be able to make sure I get to see everybody up in the corners. Sochi, World Festival of Youth and Students 2017. This is outrageous, outrageous. We're going to be asking you, wrong, I'm going to be asking you some questions today. And it's stuff for you to be able to think about, because we need to be able to consider what the answer is to that question. We're looking at the fourth industrial revolution. Show of hands, does everybody know what the fourth industrial revolution is? Okay, those of you who've got your hands down, check your tickets, and if it says World Cup, you're early, all right? Fourth industrial revolution is what we're in right now, and I'm going to be showing you some various aspects where you will turn around and you will go, oh, that's what it is. Cool, that's useful, that's handy. But my question to you is, what is your role going to be? What are you going to do within the fourth industrial revolution, within the new global economy? That's the question for you. I don't need to know the answer, because by the time you've got the answer, I'll be dead. Okay? Don't applaud that. Really, don't clap the fact I'm going to die. All right? Is that my mother? No, it's not my mother. Okay, all right. Oh, the translation has just caught up with you. Okay, all right. So my question is, okay, I'm pressing the button. Oh, there it is. So what's it all about? What is that all about? And very, very simply, it's about that. The next 20 years is about change in your lifetime. And some people react well to change, and other people don't react so well to change, all right? And if I think back 20 years ago, in fact, 20 years ago today, that was me, okay? So 20 years ago today, I was a major in the British Army. I was the NATO spokesman in Bosnia, okay? Great job, fantastic. 20 years forward, I'm now Professor of Leadership and Strategy at Hult International Business School. What did I do in order to be able to plan for that? Nothing. Nothing, all right? I really wish I'd thought that far forward, but I hadn't. Nobody had turned around and said to me, hey, Chris, this is going to be happening to you. Nobody had said, get a plan together and start building for the next 20 years. Nobody said that. Guess what? I'm saying that to you today. So you need to start thinking about where you fit in the next 20 years and what you do in order to be able to get yourself to that point. Okay? Sounds fair. I'm giving you a heads up. I can't do much more than that. Massive challenges in the next 20 years. Massive challenges that will be tasking you and testing you every single day that you happen to be alive on this here planet. And I'm going to itemize those for you. That's how much I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you each one of those so that you can turn around and go, do you know what? I think I will choose that one. I will do that in the future. Okay? And apart from actually doing it for you, I don't know what else I can do. But I'll help you out as much as I can. And 2 friends of mine will help you out as well. And this is Professor Artem Organov and Professor Olaf Hauer, okay, who are much, much smarter than me. I'm waiting for the translation to pick up. Okay, the main people clapping right now were Professor Artem Organov and Professor Olaf Hauer, all right? Those are the main people clapping. So what we're going to do, I'll wait for you, don't worry. So back in 2011, way back in 2011, David House turned around and said that chip performance would double every 18 months. All right, that was in 2011. In 2012, they decided that was wrong. That wasn't going to happen that way. It was actually going to be a little bit quicker than that. And what that actually means is when we think back, and if you look at your history, and you look back at the Apollo program back in America, all those years ago, the computer that was required for the Apollo program would fill this space, okay? But the ability would be less than the mobile phones that I'm seeing being held in the air now, okay? And it would cost billions of dollars to have this thing that didn't have as much computing capacity as an iPhone 5S, okay? That's the reality of it. Today, those phones are amazing, incredible, absolutely incredible. And what do they cost? $1,000, maybe a bit more. So that's the route that we've been going since the 70s. And that's how technology has been advancing bit by bit, particularly now to the point where we find ourselves thinking on a daily basis how we interact with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is part of our life. We can't get away from it. Every aspect of our life has a touch of artificial intelligence in it. Chinese government believes so. They're investing $15 billion in artificial intelligence in the next 14 months. I don't know of a Chinese government that throws money at something that it knows isn't going to work. That doesn't happen. Voice recognition. When people think about banking, people are now looking at new security protocols in order to be able to access your bank accounts. Voice recognition together with biometrics, and these are these interactions between machines and humans becoming more and more prevalent every single day that we're here. Massive advances in voice and image recognition. How many people flew in to Sochi? Okay, put your hands down. How many people had to go through a biometric test in order to get here? So your fingerprints, and at the airport, a little scanner that scans your eyeball in order for you to be able to get on the plane. Yeah. Anywhere that you go in the next 5 years, that's exactly what you're going to have to do. If you need a visa to come to Russia, they take your fingerprints and they scan your eyeball. It's all part of biometrics. It's here already. This is not science fiction. This is science fact. This is happening now. There's going to be more of it. Who's heard of Amazon Go as a store? I know you have, Olga. I lectured on it in Moscow. Okay, all right, good. There's a few of you. Let me explain what Amazon Go is all about. Amazon Go is a store in America where you can walk in with your trolley and there's no staff. No one. You go to every single aisle and you can pick out whatever you want to and you can put it in your trolley, and the scanners have already recognized your credit card in your pocket, and they recognize everything you put in your trolley as you're wheeling around. And when you come out to checkout, there's no checkout. You just put everything in the bags and you go. Why? Because Amazon have already scanned your credit card for how much that cost. And you're out of there. You're gone. Okay? So in your mind, there's no bill to pay. Yeah, that's wrong. You've already paid it. It's already paid. Okay? So that's what Amazon are playing with at the present time. And look for them. They're coming up with some interesting ideas. In the field of robotics, robotics is already here. If you don't think it is, you haven't been looking hard enough. I'm looking at the people around the corner here, trying to catch up with you guys. Right now in the States, they've got medical robots, state-of-the-art medical robots. They do their rounds together with normal doctors, and they look at their patients and they give advice to nurses who are treating at the far end, prescribing drugs, etc., etc. And why not? Why not? Makes perfect sense. The guy at the far end is a fully trained surgeon, physician, whatever it may be. He will do his rounds via a robot. Nothing wrong with it. Perfectly fine. Amazon again, who are taking the logistics and global supply chain apart with their use of drones. Once we understand the legislation behind drones, because that's a bit of a problem at the moment, everybody's playing with them up in routes coming into the airport and all sorts of things. You wouldn't do it anywhere near my house. Somebody come and arrest you. I live near Gatwick in southern England on the flight path. So if you put a drone up there, you get the police at your front door in about 5 minutes. The cost of free trade is going to come down. Global supply chains will become more effective. Why? Because you're cutting out an enormous chunk of industry. You're maximizing your costs. Okay? Autonomous vehicles. Oh, have I had some conversations about this? Got a question for you. Who would, right now, if you had the option to go drive from here to Moscow in a driverless vehicle, who would do it? That's really interesting. That's really interesting. Because I asked the same question in London not that long ago, a couple of weeks ago. I said, who would drive from here to Scotland in an autonomous vehicle? And not one person put their hand up. Right? Not one. So I don't know if that means you're winning or not. I'm not sure. Audi have just launched the most advanced self-driving vehicle on the roads today, and it looks exactly the same as an Audi A8. Exactly the same. It just hasn't got your ability to drive. And it's you see, I'm going through a midlife crisis, is my problem. I'm an old man and I've got a sports car. I mean, you know, come on. I've got typical written all over my face. And I like the idea of being in control, you know. Big V8 up front, loads of gas in the back, go for a drive around the M25. I'm happy, you know, I'm smiling. What is the fun, okay, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but what is the fun of getting into a vehicle and going, I'm a passenger? How much fun do passengers have? I don't know. I mean, you know, that's just me. One thing that has been launched in the UK just now is this, which is convoys. And it's only the lead truck that is controlled. The 3 trucks behind, 1, 2, 3, they are all linked to the lead truck. Okay? And they will have drivers there, but they're not doing anything. They're studying for their degree, or they're doing an open university course, whatever it may be, or they're reading William Shakespeare, whatever. But they're not driving. Okay? And we're doing trials on this now, but this will be, as far as people are concerned, this will be the future. This will be commonplace in the next 20 years. We will see these up and down our roads, and probably across Europe as well, into Russia, Far East, etc. 3D printing, huge at the moment. Huge, massive, great advances in 3D printing. Right now, Siemens and Peter the Great St. Petersburg Polytechnic University have just made the first 3D printed combustion engine. I'm not too sure making a combustion engine from 3D is actually working along the whole energy storage, greener planet thing, but they've done it. And it's all made from 3D printed parts. That's happening right now. I like this bit, which is where there's a 3D printed heart. So there's advances in medical technology, medical adaptations for 3D printing. The only problem with that is, how do you start it? They've made it, but is there a button that you press that says, start now? Go. No. So they've got to get around this whole idea of, with a human heart, zap it with a bit of electricity. Mine had moved just then, by the way. Zap it with some electricity, and it starts. With a 3D printed heart, how do you do that? Okay, that's a problem. We need to figure that problem out, but it will be figured out. It will get there. 3D printed organs, already here. There's a company in Florida who are making 3D printed organs free for veterans from Afghanistan and Iraq, okay, for American servicemen. Doing it now, happening now. You can, in fact, go online and order. Bonkers. But they'll fit them in their surgery in Florida. Now, happening now. I love this nanotechnology, love it. Absolutely incredible advances in nanotechnology. Nanobots being artificially created, being injected into the bloodstream and fighting diseases and bacteria, pretending to be white blood cells. Wow. Wow. That's insane. The next one I like even more. Blood nanobots delivering chemotherapy 1,000 times as potent, but without any of the side effects. Who wouldn't wish for that? That is a huge advance in treating cancers. Massive. Because the one thing that we've always seen is people who are being treated with chemotherapy, the hair's falling out, they're being ill, they're being weak, etc., etc., etc. Cancer's everywhere. It's all over the place. As our atmosphere changes and we get exposed to more harmful rays, the ozone layer becomes thinner and thinner, we're being exposed to more harmful radiation, which causes cancers. Although, if you believe President Trump, then there is no global warming, that you don't need to worry about it at all, which is good. Biotechnology, huge leaps forward. This is this whole thing about technology increasing by the power of 10 every 18 months. It isn't. It's going far faster than that, far faster. And one of the things that they're doing at the moment is creating heart valves through a weave. Weave technology, engineering, tissue engineering. Crazy stuff. And we come on to my colleague's favorite subject, which is material science. And I'm going to hand over the stage now to an expert in this particular field, Ladies and gentlemen, you made me feel very welcome. Please, Professor Artem Organov. Oh, good man. I'll use the stairs.
Good morning, dear friends. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will tell you about the topic of my research in the last 13 years. Topic of crystal structure prediction and its role in revolutionizing material science and enabling technologies of the future. If you look at all the technologies that surround us, they all rely heavily on materials. Without materials with superior properties, you cannot imagine any technology, old or new. We need new materials for all sectors of our life. Energy, environment, consumer goods, military, whatever you can imagine. Properties of materials depend very strongly on their crystal structure, on how the atoms are actually arranged in space inside these materials. If you want to design a new material, if you want to predict a new material that someone has not yet seen, you must be able to predict its crystal structure. Once you know the structure, you can figure out the properties. If you do not know the crystal structure, too bad. Forget it. So this is the basic idea that will go throughout my talk. Human beings became capable of discovering crystal structures slightly more than 100 years ago. You can see photographs of these two gentlemen, William Lawrence and his father, William Henry Braggs, who shared the Nobel Prize back in 1915. They got their Nobel Prize for the first determinations of crystal structures. Actually, in this tandem, the son, the young Bragg, was the leader, and his father was his assistant. And William Lawrence Bragg got his Nobel Prize at the age of 25. He is still the youngest Nobel Prize winner in physics. So experimentally, we know what to do. You take your crystal, you irradiate it with X-rays, and what X-rays produce with your crystal structure, the diffraction pattern, will characterize the crystal structure. You can solve the inverse problem and figure out where the atoms actually are. This is a great method, one of the greatest breakthroughs in 20th century science. At least 26 Nobel Prizes were awarded for crystal structure determinations using this method, including, for example, the famous work on the determination of the structure of DNA. And again, that's an illustration that once you know the structure, you can understand and predict properties. Once people understood the double helix structure, they figured out the mechanisms of heredity, mechanisms of information transmission from parents to children. What about crystal structure prediction? People believed until quite recently that this problem is completely intractable, because if you want to find the most stable arrangement of atoms in space, you must scan a huge number of different possibilities. And the number is astronomically large, and it will not be enough for your lifetime to wait until the end of this calculation. And even lifetime of the universe would be too short for you to find the solution. So people thought, give up on it. It's totally intractable, hopeless. However, there are kinds of algorithms which you can describe as artificial intelligence, which are capable of solving such problems. For example, evolutionary algorithms. They are a kind of artificial intelligence algorithms, self-learning algorithms, which do not try to sample all possible solutions, but find a shortcut to the optimum solution. And we have developed our own evolutionary algorithm. I gave it the name Uspekh, which means success in Russian. And the problem now appears as solved. Our method utilizes a combination of our search algorithm quantum mechanical calculations. So very rapid global optimization using evolution combined with the greatest possible accuracy provided by quantum mechanics. And nowadays, thousands of researchers worldwide use our method, and also a number of big companies such as Sony, Toyota, and others. Okay, I will tell you a few things about our method and its different flavors, and also about different phenomena that have been discovered using it. First of all, I would like to show you a little animation of how we predict structure of, let's say, something simple, carbon, at high pressure. If you could play the movie, please, you will see how, starting from very random disordered structures, we arrive at this structure. And this structure is nothing else but diamond. So using absolutely no information except quantum mechanics and my search algorithm, we get the solution known experimentally. Okay, but in many cases the solution is not known experimentally. That's the fun of it. That's the fun of it, when you can predict something by theory and then get experimentalists led by theoretical prediction and confirming it. However, if you want to predict materials with optimal use for industry, with optimal technological use, you have to optimize not just stability. It's not enough to optimize the stability. And it's not enough to optimize one property. You need to combine several properties. For example, if you are making an aircraft, you want alloys which are hard, but also light, and of course also stable. It's not enough to optimize just one property. You need all three. And actually you need a fourth one, don't you? It has to be cheap. You don't want to make airplanes from diamond. You've got to have some cheaper material. Okay, and this naturally brings us to the concept of multi-objective optimization. And fortunately for me, this one has been figured out a century before me by an Italian economist, Vilfredo Pareto. Actually, the whole math for multi-objective optimization is known. And Vilfredo Pareto is known also for his second work. He proved the so-called 80-20 rule. Do you know what is 80-20 rule of Pareto? Please raise your hands. Oh, a lot of people know. Actually, about 20% of the audience know what Pareto said, that 20% of people do 80% of work. 20% of people possess 80% of resources. 20% of organizations are more effective than 80% combined. Okay, Pareto, but this is one thing. And Pareto multi-objective optimization is another thing, where optimal solution is not one single material, but a set of materials with different degree of compromise between the properties of your interest. For example, stability and hardness. Here we optimize stability and hardness of chromium-carbon compounds. And you can see all the optimal solutions, which include diamond, which is the hardest one, but not the most stable one. The most stable form of carbon is what? Graphite. That's why graphite is cheap and diamond is expensive, because diamond is not the most stable form. It requires extra pressure to make. And also a number of very, very hard chromium carbides, which could be used in industry. Talking about industry, there is one really, really special material, tungsten carbide. In chemistry, we write its chemical formula rather non-romantically, WC. That's the chemical formula, tungsten carbide. Tungsten carbide is used all over the place. In machining tools, in various military things, in drilling equipment, when they drill for oil and gas and whatever. In Russia, tungsten carbide has a special name, or actually composite based on tungsten carbide, pobedite, which viz victory alloy. It was used to break the armor of German tanks at the Battle of Moscow. That's why victory alloy. And it is still used. This material has had decades of really glorious use. But we actually find, we actually find a number of new materials which exceed this pobedite, this victory alloy, by both toughness and hardness. So more durable, harder, and potentially even cheaper materials. We will see what future will bring us. Maybe a new generation of strong, hard materials is coming. Maybe. By the way, in my presentation, I will make conclusions / questions, because every new result comes with a question, what comes next? This is very, very important because we are scientists. Scientists never make a full stop. Scientists always follow it up with a question mark. What's next? What are the next questions to solve? Otherwise, we get out of job if we stop asking questions. That's our job, to ask questions and to answer them. Second class of materials that are really, really exciting is thermoelectric materials. They transform heat into electricity. Imagine a world where you wear your watch and your watch requires no battery and you never need to charge it because it charges from the heat of your body. Imagine power plants would be equipped with thermoelectric materials which would capture waste heat and transform it into electricity, increasing efficiency of power generation. Imagine in your car, a lot of heat is produced and wasted. What if that heat could be captured and transformed into electricity? Wouldn't it be wonderful? You could charge your phones and whatever gadgets inside the car. Maybe you could also drive your car with greater efficiency. Yeah? Also, these materials work the other way around. By passing current through a thermoelectric device, you can actually enable cooling, thermoelectric cooling. So a different kind of refrigeration. Thermoelectric materials are wonderful. The whole world is looking at them as a big hope for new revolutionary technologies. They are already now applied. But people say that because of low efficiency of current thermoelectric devices, only a few % currently at best, the range of applications is limited. But if you can increase this efficiency by just 2 times, it would be a revolution. How to increase their efficiency by 2 times? And is it possible? Well, we actually have adapted our method for particularly this problem. And we found that increasing efficiency of these materials by 2 times does not seem to be a problem at all. We took the best currently known room temperature thermoelectric material, bismuth telluride. We searched for this Pareto front, which is a compromise of thermoelectric efficiency and stability, and we found that increasing it twice is not a big deal at all. In principle, possible. We don't yet have the final solution of the problem, but we know that in principle, this problem has a solution. So, we might quite soon witness a thermoelectric revolution. Let me tell you also a little bit about new phenomena that we have predicted and experimentally verified using these kind of methodologies. On the left-hand side, you see a picture of a new form of element boron. This element has been known for 200 years, and people still keep discovering exciting things about it. It's a very complicated and very mysterious element. With my colleagues, we have predicted and experimentally proved the existence of a new form, the structure of which you can see here. Actually, this model has been 3D printed. So we combine various different modern technologies. On the right-hand side, you see another structure of another element, sodium, an element which always seemed to be so simple and so well understood. Perfect metal. It can be described as a simple model as free electron model. What can be simpler than that? Shiny silvery metal. But under pressure, we predicted, contrary to normal physical intuition, that it will not be a metal anymore. It will be transparent. And in fact, this silvery metal, as you compress it harder and harder, will turn red transparent, orange transparent, and then colorless like a piece of glass. Quite unbelievable. And experimentalists proved it. And here is a 3D printed version of this structure as well. Okay, so chemistry under pressure changes in rather dramatic ways. Transparent sodium, new kind of, with very exotic chemical bonding, new kind of form of boron, stable compounds of helium. This is what I will show you in a minute. And completely new, completely unexpected, and even forbidden within classical chemistry compounds. Okay, forbidden compounds. If I ask you which chemical compound all of you know best, I guess the answer would be either water or salt. Salt is so simple and so well known to us. But we figured out that under high pressure, chemistry of salt will be very counterintuitive, very different from what we're used to. And our calculations confirmed it. At high pressure, we predicted that sodium chloride will not be just NaCl that we're used to, but also NaCl3, NaCl7, Na3Cl, Na2Cl, Na3Cl2, Na4Cl3. All of these are stable at certain ranges of pressure. And most of these are metallic. Some of them are two-dimensional metals. That means they conduct electricity only within planes, but not between the planes of the structure. This is totally at odds with traditional rules of chemistry. And we do not have full explanation of what is going on, but we already have an experimental confirmation of these predicted phenomena. Helium. Helium is an element which makes quarter of the mass of baryonic part of the universe. Second most abundant element in the universe, and believed to be the most inert one. However, we have predicted that at high pressures, but not that high, only at pressures of about 1 million atmospheres, pressure in the center of the Earth is almost 4 million atmospheres. So pressure is quite normal for the universe. Helium forms a very stable compound with sodium, and not one, but two compounds, Na2He and Na2HeO. In fact, Na2HeO is stable at pretty low pressures. So chemistry of helium is not a barren field anymore. It's now beginning to unwind. Things change under pressure. We find unique, counterintuitive materials with new kind of chemical rules, which we still do not fully understand. New chemistry, new crystal structures, possibly new properties and new applications. Let me show you that. 3 years ago, kind of scientific revolution happened when a group of Chinese people, using my computer program, which we distribute freely around the world, predicted a new compound. New compound which is forbidden by rules of classical chemistry, H3S, hydrogen sulfide. Who knows about hydrogen sulfide? Please raise your hands. It's a very, very stinky substance which has the smell of rotten eggs. H2S. If you compress H2S, it breaks down and forms a compound which shouldn't exist according to classical chemistry. The formula is H3S. Now, H3S was predicted by Chinese scientists who also predicted it to be a very good, very high temperature superconductor. In fact, record high temperature superconductor, almost at room temperature. 200 degrees Kelvin. You have such temperatures in Yakutia, in some regions of Russia. 1 year later, an independent experiment confirmed exactly that. New superconductor with chemical formula H3S, exactly this crystal structure, superconducting with the same temperature, 203 degrees Kelvin, at the same pressure range. Triumph of theory. And a new kind of revolution, bringing us to the question of room temperature superconductivity, raising our hopes about room temperature superconductivity once again. A topic which seemed to be almost dead a decade ago, now is alive again. And one day, I think we will find room temperature superconductivity. The question is whether we will find it at normal conditions or at high pressure. And very quickly, to finish up this talk, I want to tell you one or two very short stories. There is a mystery that people have had for a couple thousand years, that people who inhale fine silica dust, very fine sand, they develop lung cancer. And the cause of it was unknown. It is still unknown. If you ask medics, medics will link cancer very frequently to the so-called oxidative stress, so-called reactive oxygen species, strong oxidants which enter in your body, trigger a cascade of oxidation reaction, ended up in mutations of the DNA. The question is, what the heck does silica have to do with reactive oxygen species? There are none in silica. How can silica, a very inert material of glass, material, very common material. How can it be reactive with our cells? We actually found that in very fine-grained state, in the nanostate, chemistry of silica is very different, and in fact it has a lot of extra oxygen. And the stable form of nanoparticles containing 7 silicon atoms and variable number of oxygens is not silicon 7014, but the most dominant one is silicon 7019, huge extra amount of oxygens. In fact, in the form of highly reactive ozonide ions. So this is what we think is responsible for lung cancer. This extra oxygen which attaches to it in the oxygen atmosphere. We think we begin to understand lung cancer related to silica nanoparticles. Do we know how to battle it? Future will show. Talking about illnesses, we also have launched recently another project related to crystal structure prediction, but going beyond it, protein structure prediction. Many illnesses actually are related to misfolding of proteins. Proteins are these very long molecules containing hundreds or maybe even up to tens of thousands of atoms. And these long molecules can fold in a variety of different ways. And depending on how proteins are folded in your body, they will function differently. Because remember, structure determines functions. And if it misfolds, a number of dramatic consequences can happen. For example, Alzheimer's disease is related to misfolding. Cancer indirectly is linked to misfolding as well, and aging, and many, many other diseases as well. This is the current state of art in protein structure prediction. By red and by blue, you see ribbons. It's a special representation of proteins structure. One of them is predicted, one of them is experimental. You can see that for some relatively simple proteins, there is a significant degree of success already now. But in general, the problem remains unsolved. Well, we looked at some of the simplest proteins, and we found that we can actually perform with our method at least as well as the currently best available methods. Okay, what I showed you today is that we have learned how to solve crystal structures, how to predict crystal structures theoretically. Something that was believed to be intractable, impossible, now is possible, and is used by thousands of researchers. A lot of new phenomena have been discovered. New chemistry under pressure, which still has no general explanation. Record high temperature superconductivity, possible explanation of lung cancer. And, well, a new story of protein structure prediction, which might bring us closer to solving some of the most unpleasant and deadly illnesses that we suffer from. Well, finally, I would like to tell you that we now also work on different computational strategies. For example, we have adapted recently distributed computing. It's a kind of hacking technology, if you like, where our calculations are spread over hundreds and hundreds of computers all over the world. You can donate your computers for our use. When you are not working on your computer, when you're sleeping or jogging in the park, your computer will do our calculations. But when you come back to your computer, my calculation will fall asleep and wait until resources are free again. This kind of technology enables us to use a huge amount of computing power. Right now our project is still in the infancy, but we're thinking that very soon we will have tens of thousands of computers at our disposal through this distributed computing network. Finally, I would like to thank my brilliant collaborators, my students, 10 of whom are now professors in different universities of the world, and also experimental collaborators from other institutions, and you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Artem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I told you was smarter than me.
You told it, but you lied.
Oh. Okay. One of the problems that we've got as humanity is, what do we do in order to provide energy in the future? Because that is an issue for us. We're running out of options. We're running out of energy, but we're running out of options in order to store that energy in the first place. And something that has come up recently is a new energy storage system. And that is it balanced on a rosebud. Okay? And usually when people talk about energy storage, you imagine these enormous, great power plants, things the size of this building. It's balancing on a rosebud. And so this is the way that our brains are taking us. This is the way our imagination is taking us in order to be able to do one of the most simple but most essential tasks that we have got in the 21st century. If we're going to power this planet, we've got to store energy somewhere. And here's an option. Something a little bit larger, I hope. Massive advances in quantum computing. For those who don't know, processing data with light. Huge advances in that. And Microsoft have just announced, as in last month, that their progress so far in building a quantum computer is bang on schedule. That they are looking to be launching something in the near future related to quantum computing. It's what you are going to be growing up with. It's what your children are going to be growing up with. Digital fabrication, I love this. Digital fabrication is outrageous. It is totally reinventing. In fact, I'll tell you what, I was driving in to Sochi today, this morning, and I was looking at some of the buildings, and I'm almost certain that there are influences in the architecture that are going to determine how we build and how we design buildings in the future. I think there's some amazing stuff just literally outside that door. Because one of the things that we're looking at very closely, I say we, architects and designers are looking at closely, is something called biomimicry. And this particular picture here is something that was in London last year, and it's called the Termite Pavilion. And the Termite Pavilion was designed specifically to replicate the inside of a termite mound and the strength and stability and the way that air would pass through it. So we're taking not just influences from great designers, but we're taking influences from the insect world and everything that is around us. And that's essential. If we're going to be able to build buildings that last, that have stability and that last, then we need to be able to look at areas that we've not explored previously. And this is one of them. And in order to be able to assist us with that, areas where we have had stability and there are solid objects like this are now coming to a point where we can say, well, we can bend this. It needs to be flexible. This is the first or a most functional, flexible transistor in the world. Inexpensive fabrication process, easily scalable to the commercial world. And for those of you in the audience who think to themselves, that's interesting, I wonder how I could use that, you're exactly the people that this is designed for. Because you are the people who are thinking to yourself, what is the use of this? How can this be adapted to what I do or the area of my expertise? IoT, Internet of Things. This is so much part of our life now that we pretty much take it for granted. I'm sitting in a restaurant with a friend of mine, and all of a sudden he gets something up on his phone. I always find if I'm in a restaurant with somebody and they're on their phone, does that mean that whatever's happening out there is more interesting than whatever's happening in the restaurant? Doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy, I'll be honest. I kind of worry about that. You know. So anyway, he gets this really interesting message. And it basically, he smiles. And I said, what's that? He said, my fridge has just ordered next week's shopping. What? I said, yeah. He said, I've got this fridge. And it basically gets a shopping list together. It scans the inside of my fridge. And it figures out what is there and what isn't there. And what I need more of, depending on what I've been using recently. And it will order that automatically from the supermarket. Really? That's outrageous. Don't you find that is slightly unnerving, the fact that your fridge is deciding what you eat in the future? And he went, well, it saves me thinking about it. And I think that's pretty much where we're getting to, that we live in a society where we are pretty lazy. I'll be honest with you. More on that in a minute. But I think we are. We're getting lazier and lazier as time goes by. And the IoT is just helping us to become perhaps a little bit lazier. And IoT is effectively that. Let me read it out for you because you're going to get it translated. The network of physical devices, vehicles, and other items embedded with electronics, software, sensors, actuators, and network connectivity which enable these objects to collect and exchange data. It's everywhere. Everywhere. All right? IoT is basically last year's news. It's here already to stay, and it will influence how things move forward and what we do with that information in the next 20 years. Massive. Again, massive. Oracle, who are a fairly big company, they've turned around and said, well, look, we're going to elevate this, the whole idea of IoT, we're going to elevate that. New level. And this is the announcement of an IoT cloud service, which incorporates artificial intelligence and machine learning. And machine learning is apparently, by 2024, will grow to a $16.4 billion market. For those of you who are still to make career decisions, I hope you're making a shortlist because you've got some great options out there. In order to take our discussion here today to the next stage, I'm going to hand this stage over to my good friend, Professor Olaf Hauer.
Thanks a lot.
The green.
Добрый день.
Good morning.
I was asked to give my speech in English, although I could have done it in Russian too. So here we are in English. First, I would like to say, you know what, Chris? Why in England, when you ask the question who would drive in an auto-driving car, why people don't raise their hand? Too conservative, too conservative. Whereas I, as a German, knowing Audi and BMW, I've been with BMW for 17 years, of course I raise my hand. Russians are hazardous people, much more emotional, so they go for the adventure then as well. Okay, guys, we will have today, now we are talking about something which is not related to new technologies, high technologies, but it is related to you, to your heart, to your soul, to your brain, to your spirit, and to your body. And all that stuff emerges in your behavior, which is most of all communication. So let's have a look at what I suggest as an image for the future. I would call it collaboration, real collaboration and authenticity, instead of competition that we've been having for 2,000 or more years, and double standards. And we'll dive a little bit deeper in this. Yeah, I should say, besides Stockholm School of Economics, my team is called INTG, which is Irresistible Nuts to Go, or Interstellar Gate for some new transition. And also I work in the Polytech University in St. Petersburg as professor, invited. So on the background of the huge TAM that high technologies are coming up and having even races, one might ask, are we as humans catching up as fast with those technologies as the technologies themselves catch up with each other? And obviously, although we are very smart, otherwise we wouldn't have had these technologies, our feelings, our thoughts, our emotions, most of the emotions are negative ones, only 2 are positive ones. Our judgments have not changed throughout the last thousands of years. Have not. And I'm looking at my students, 20, 23, 25 years. Very narrow horizon of judgment. Rather saying, I know it better, than asking questions. What's that? So now, next question is, why, if we are so smart, we still face, on the background of new technologies that we have today partly been introduced to, why do we still face poverty, hunger, war, and a huge inequality in distribution of wealth? I may remind you of a nice figure of 2013. In 2013, we had already 7 billion people on this earth. The half of 7 billion is 3.5 billion, you know? And 85 of the richest people in 2013 owned as much as 3.5 billion. Oh, that's a huge unequal distribution of wealth, isn't it? And we are still facing, on the one hand, this nice progress of high technology. On the other hand, we ourselves, topčem se na městě, we don't really develop. So then the question to you is, what are you doing about it? You, each of you, because you are the leaders of the future, aren't you? You are, to refer to the Pareto principle, you are the 20% that can make a change, a sustainable change. So what way would you choose to go? The old one? Confrontation, double standards, lying, bending reality, behaving when it is appropriate to behave in this way and behaving in another way when it's inappropriate? What are you choosing? What way? So now imagine you yourself, you represent a single universe in this large universe. In yourself, you carry the experience of your parents, of your grandparents, of their parents, and so on and so on and so on and so on. All that is in you, all that. And most of us are really not aware of that. So the question is, shall we start developing what's in us? Developing means understanding the potentials that we have. It's not only our brain, it's not only the thoughts, it's much more intuition, feelings, spirit, values, what's really important, values, as our body. So this entire system that we are representing, this is what we have to explore more. Because, friends, I would like to ask you a question. Would you really hand over the responsibility for your lives, for our society, for our culture, for our planet, to some high technologies, to some disruptive technologies, without having realized your own responsibility for your own life and for the life of the others? But that would be a very smart move, because that would mean that you don't want to take responsibility for your own life and that you would rely on some artificial intelligence. And tomorrow we will have a debate on this stuff. So once again, I introduce you to wonder, what's your way? What is your way? And I suggest to go away to a real collaboration, working together, not against, and authenticity. What is authenticity? I tell you a little bit later. And responsibility, that's it. But let's have a look what we are facing right now. We are still in the paradigm of good and bad, evil and good. We are still in this paradigm. And when you look at science fiction movies, starting from Matrix, Elysium, I don't talk about Alien, but the last science fiction film, Blade Runner, what kind of picture do these movies show us? Dark pictures. Not very attractive. And actually, I refuse to live like this. When I look around my surroundings, my social surroundings, I can't find evil. I do not find it. But we are constantly confronted with it. But sometimes we face what we call confrontation. Sometimes we face what we call to win at any cost. And I ask you, do you sometimes act like this? Do you sometimes want to win at any costs? Are you ready to play in double standards? Saying A, meaning B, thinking this, talking that, applying different standards to the same behavior? Are you doing that sometimes? Please ask yourself. Please ask yourself, what would you keep, stop, start doing in order to make a significant difference that will make a difference for our future? To get rid of these shadowy guys like this one, and this one is, yeah, we have to accept it. This is a CEO of Nestle who says water is not a human right. No? Oh, you can, later on, you can buy it. You can buy your life in bottles of water pumped out from the Great Lakes between Canada and the United States. So what we need to get over is this competition paradigm, dear friends. Competition is okay when the rules are clear and everybody sticks to the rules. Then competition is really good. Yeah? But competition in terms of I only care about myself, I don't care what you think, I don't care your interests, that is what brings us again into the same spiral of S-H-I-T. So competition, and the opposite to competition is complete adaptation. So what we also have is some people simply give up. But what we are going for is at least compromise and collaboration. This is what we are going for, dear friends. And obviously, the future of our society, of our planet, it can look like this. Yeah, it can look like this. well, then this is the end of mankind. So now let's have a look. What do I mean when I say real collaboration, authenticity, and responsibility? What do I mean? First of all, guys, EPIC. It's a very simple principle. EPIC. Every problem involves communication. And every problem solution involves communication as well. So we need to be able to properly communicate in a mature and adult manner. Because experience and any computer simulation shows in the long-term run, collaboration is the only way to survive, to prosperity in our one world, as an alternative to slavery, war, extinction. Okay, guys, and here we have a very simple principle which we call basic principle of social interaction, and it starts from perceiving information. And sometimes we perceive a lot of information, and sometimes we perceive contradictive information, sometimes we disagree. Yeah, we disagree. Well, what do we do then when we disagree? Guys, we accept. We accept different opinions as a fact that a different opinion exists, as well as the carrier of the different opinion exists. We accept. We prevent ourselves from immediately judging, oh, this is not good, this is bad, this is impossible, and so on. We prevent ourselves. And only afterwards understand. Not the other way around. Not the other way around. Not understand, accept, but accept, understand. Because when we don't understand, we would not accept. That's not the way. 7.5 billion people means 7.5 billion opinions, theoretically. Afterwards, we would evaluate, meaning we would make a conclusion for ourselves. What am I going to keep, stop, start doing about the fact that I just got to know about? What am I going to keep, stop, start doing about new technologies? Will I keep using them? Will I stop using them? Will I start using a new refrigerator that tells me what I have to buy? Yeah, it's my decision. My decision, your decision as adult people. Here they are. These are the values that I suggest to stick to get into a reality of real collaboration, working together, not against, authenticity, and responsibility. Ultimately, happiness, dear friends. Let's have a look. What does it mean, acceptance? Very simple. I accept the fact of other opinions exist. I accept it. It doesn't mean that I take it over, I just accept it. The next one is respect. Respect I show to the carrier of different opinions. I respectful deal with people, even though I don't share their opinions. But anyway, I show respect. It's not only a matter of courtesy, it's a moral imperative for our society. So this is how it looks like when people meet up with acceptance and respect. And this is how it looks like when there's no respect. Sorry. This is the opposite to respect. And I don't know whether you have been in this kind of situation. I have. On both sides. Not nice. Not nice. Okay, let's go on. What is value number 3 that I suggest to stick to after acceptance and respect? We come up with transparency, guys. Transparency. What does it mean, transparency? I play with open cards. I play with open cards. No double standards. No, today I say A and tomorrow I say B. No, today I'm your friend and tomorrow I'm not. No, I play with open cards. I make things clear and I stick to these openly communicated rules. That's the point. So now number 4 is constructive communication or mature communication. You may think, wow, communication, what's that? I communicate every day, several hours, so I'm an expert in communication. No, most of us are not. Again, Pareto principle. You're the future leaders, you're the 20% that can make a difference in the entire society and on the planet. The same with mature communicators. At best, 20% of people are really mature communicators. At best. So we need to learn that constructive, mature communication requires skills to have in place, like listening, asking questions, being open-minded, really understanding, dealing with emotions when interests collide, being able to calm down an atmosphere, being constructive and mature. Mature means you stay with your own opinion and don't bend because 10 people start shouting at you. Now collaboration, guys. Collaboration means, in the narrow sense of the word, we work together, not against. And here I would like to refer to Charles Darwin. I hope that you know Charles Darwin. So, and then you probably know this one single quote that is constantly being referred to: survival of the fittest. Have you ever heard that? Charles Darwin, survival of the fittest, evolution theory. Who has heard that? Okay. Now, have you ever heard the next quote? Evolution is collaboration and improvisation. Have you ever heard that? Who has heard that? Oh, that's it. This is the main message of Charles Darwin. Collaboration and improvisation. Yeah? And for that, working together, not against. Last but not least is number 6 of the values that I suggest. Forget about this win-win. Win-win means I win, you win, that's it. And I don't give a about the others. You know? Win-win, win-win-win means I win, you win. Our company wins, our society wins, and our natural environment wins. But this is the approach of the 21st century. Now, guys. Now, there's a pretty nice, let's say, and simple model. Comes from the transaction analysis. It's from the 60s, but some things from the previous century are still valid, and some things from the golden times of Greece 2,500 years ago are also still valid. So I would like to ask you, what do you think, what kind of I you most of all refer to? Are you in your communications most of the times on the level of a mature adult individual who has its own opinion, who stands for a certain value, who sticks to it, who can defend it, and at the same time accept and respect other opinions? And then we have 2 more levels of the I, parent I and child I. And some of us like to go for the parent I. Always know it better. Teach, judge, patronize, and so on and so on. When they communicate, then ultimately the partner has to take the position of the child I, which makes the communication immature, non-adult. And we also know, especially from quite hierarchic societies, we know that younger people have to go for the child I because they are not supposed to criticize their superiors. Because if they would do that, they would let their superiors lose face, and they would lose face themselves. It's a kind of, sorry to say, it's a kind of not very adult communication. Okay, guys. We need some stuff that we learn. And there's a pretty simple thing that you can make use of, is the KSS tactics. Keep, stop, start, doing. I would like you today, maybe within the next 2-3 minutes, to wonder, what would you keep doing in your everyday behavior to make your vision of the future come true? What would you keep doing? What would you stop doing in your interaction with others? And what would you, instead of this, start doing? Believe me, we've done that many times in a large project where 500 people changed their behavior within 2-3 months. Guys, changing behavior is, in fact, a pretty simple thing. Most of the cases, you need to stop 2 behaviors that are troubling yourself and others. 2. And you need to ultimately start 2 new behaviors, more mature, more constructive, more respectful, more accepting. And that would change your behavior as a system. Ultimately, the interaction between you and your people would become more mature. Ultimately, you could become more authentic, which means you are in line with your feelings, with your thoughts, with your intuition, with your spirit. Yeah? And ultimately, we could build up trust. Trust to overcome the paradigm of evil and good. Because it's a two-polus world that doesn't work. We are much more complex. Okay, dear friends. I think that's it for today. I was already shown that I'm overbending the time. Last point. When you happen to figure out what kind of behavior you yourself would stop and what you would start, then please be aware of one thing. Changing behavior sometimes takes time. You need to train the new behavior 20 to 40 times in a row before you make it a habit of yourself. Yeah? So please, it takes a little bit of discipline, and as you know, in terms of discipline, Germans are always not very bad. So, what else? Actually, am I done? Yeah? So guys, then that's it.
Thank you very much indeed. Good fun. I told you he was smarter than me as well. Thanks, Ollie. Cheers. Okay, guys. Let's just finish this one off. The most important thing that's happened in your lifetime, my lifetime, definitely, without a doubt, is that, the cloud. Why? Because it releases us from being static. We can take information wherever we want to. It comes with us straight away. We don't actually have to have anything with us. It's there, and we can move. And we can go and plug in somewhere else on your laptop or whatever and still access it on your iPad or on your phone or whatever. It's released us completely. The most important thing. And if you don't believe me, check out my favorite theoretical physicist, Dr. Michio Kaku, who I like. I think he's good fun. It's this guy here. And he says, information will come from the cloud. PCs will only be found in museums. Not going to be relevant. You're going to be able to pick up a discarded tablet because microchips are going to be so cheap. And there's a red button on it that clears the memory. And they're going to be lying around like free newspapers. You pick it up, you'll access your information, you do whatever you do, press the red button, it clears that history. And you leave it. Somebody else can pick it up. It will be the price of a piece of A4 paper. And how much is that? There is no price on it. You cannot go out and buy one piece of A4 paper. You can't. That's the value. They're going to be scattered around all over the place. PCs will be found in museums. He also goes on to say that we will have a lens connected wirelessly to a smartphone, and it will project images straight onto your eye. Does that sound science fiction to you? No, because Samsung have already got a patent in place to do exactly that. And that will hit the market, in fact, probably within the next couple of years. Now, this is the worrying bit. Chips in our toilets will detect if we have cancer 20 years before it actually appears. Personally, I do not want to know how that happens. I'm going to take a quote here from the Apollo program that I mentioned before, and I'm going to give it to you right now, because there's good news and bad news. Sochi, we got a problem, okay? And the problem is this. How many people here are aged between 18 and 32? Yeah, that's pretty much all of you. Put your hands down. You're not going to like this, all right? But I'm going to share it with you anyway. You're a millennial. And according to this man here, Professor Simon Sinek, millennials have some problems. Millennials, you lack coping mechanisms. You have a low self-esteem. Told you weren't going to like this. You're tough to manage. You are self-absorbed. You want to be rewarded even though you fail. You like to feel special. You are impatient. You remember the lazy bit? You feel entitled. You're unfocused. You're narcissistic. You're unfulfilled. You create problems for your leaders, and you require instant gratification. Who agrees with that? Really? Do you really? Do you really? Wow. Okay. I'm wondering if the people who agreed with me are over 32. Yeah, that's where we are. It's my generation who are turning around and going, yeah, this is exactly who we're dealing with right now. You're talking about my children, basically, you know. I've got a problem here. Because there's good news and there's always good news and then there's bad news. You can't have great good news all the time. There's something called the singularity. And the singularity deals with something quite specific. Okay, I'm going to go back to that. The question is here, who agrees? And there's a few people who do. I don't agree. Because if that was the case, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Okay? Obviously, you're none of those things. And that's useful, because guess what? The future isn't about me, it's about you. And you need to be none of those things. The singularity is something that's being worked on in Palo Alto at the moment. It's a supercomputer that will effectively solve all of the problems of humanity. And here's the loop. And this is why technology is moving forward so quickly. That technology it improves intelligence. Intelligence creates technology. Technology improves intelligence, etc., etc. That's the loop. That's what we've got. And the whole idea of it is the creation of greater than human intelligence to solve the problems of all humanity. Sounds like a great idea. Actually, it sounds kind of scary, but it sounds like a great idea. So I've got a question for you. What if the singularity turns around and says, I've identified the main problem with humanity, and guess what it is? It's humans. Whoops. Okay. And bearing in mind the singularity is tied into all of our networks, defense as well as everything else, that's a problem. Here's another question for you. What if we program the singularity not to eradicate the problem, as in all of humanity, and the singularity turns around, having thought about it, and it says, nah, you're wrong. I've made the decision. I know what I'm doing. I'm smarter than all humanity. I'll take care of the problem. and I'll make humanity okay again. I'll eradicate the main problem. But the main problem's humanity. Yeah, well, that's okay. We'll get rid of the problem. Hey, I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. It will be fine. Apart from artificial intelligence, robotics, autonomous vehicles, 3D printing, nanotechnology, biotechnology, material science, energy storage, quantum computing, digital fabrication, including biomimicry, you've got nothing to worry about. It's easy. Those are your choices. For the next 20 years, those are your choices. That's all you've got to worry about. Sounds fair, doesn't it? Sounds fair. I've given you a lot to think about. One of the other problems is that your toilet is going to know an awful lot more than it really should do. And that's never a good thing. Not in my world, anyway. It creates a gap now between low skill, low pay, high skill, high pay. A gap. And that's an issue. Because the world population increased by 400% over the 20th century. It's estimated 11 billion by 2100. That's insane. That's ridiculous. Olaf was talking about 7 billion. 11 billion. Here's the issues I want you to solve. If you're going to do anything in your life, solve these problems, okay? These last two. If the rest of it is too crazy for you, that's fine. It's not a problem. That's fine. Leave it. Solve these two problems because it's down to you. 1.2 billion people do not have access to clean water today. By 2020, that's going to rise to 1.7 billion people will not have access to clean water today. Okay? With current rates of soil loss, we've got 60 harvests left. 60 harvests left. So not only do you have to water the planet, but you've got to feed it as well. Because we're going to run out of food in 60 years. I'm not here. I'm gone. Your problem. Your problem to solve. Over to you. And we've done it. It was my generation that did it. We ate all the food. We ignored all the signs about global warming. That was us. And from my generation to your generation, I have one message. Here's the last thing I'm leaving you with. The issue is not that the problem is too big. The issue is that we just don't dream big enough. And that's what you need to do, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. You need this? Thank you. Okay.
On behalf of all the participants here, I would like to, first of all, cordially thank all the three fantastic speakers today and give them memory gifts from the festival, the special postmarks that you have, and also the special coin. So please, would you come up here? You will look at the stamps and you will remember the day you were here and the fantastic time we had together.
Off to you, off to you, off to you.
Oh, that was great. Super.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. That's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
И, уважаемые коллеги, мы сейчас...
Distinguished colleagues, this is the end of this session. We have a short break, and 11 o'clock and 7.4, we're going to have a group work and the surprises. I hope you all wrote down the quotes of the speakers. You have lots of quotes that could be used in the future. Thank you.